There are certain moments in your life where time just stops. It doesn't slow down. It freezes completely, like a scratched DVD pausing on the absolute worst frame of a movie. For me, that moment happened on a Tuesday afternoon, standing in my driveway with 2 heavy bags of groceries cutting off the circulation in my fingers. I was staring at a patch of concrete. Just concrete. Oil-stained, slightly cracked, familiar gray concrete. The problem obviously was what wasn't there. My 1969 Ford Mustang Fastback wasn't there. Now before you think I'm some rich collector, you need to understand something. That car wasn't just a vehicle. It wasn't just metal and rubber. That car was my sanity. It was a rust bucket when I bought it 5 years ago, a shell of a dream that I scraped together every spare penny to restore. I spent my weekends covered in grease, watching YouTube tutorials on carburetor tuning, and scouring salvage yards for authentic trim pieces. It was cherry red. It was loud. It was mine. And I had parked it right there in its designated spot, not 3 hours ago before I made a quick run to the supermarket. I blinked, thinking maybe I was having a stroke. I actually turned around and looked at the street, thinking maybe I had parked it curbside for some reason. The street was empty. The driveway was empty. My stomach dropped so hard I thought it hit the pavement. The panic was instant, cold and prickly. I dropped the grocery bags. A jar of pasta sauce shattered, splattering red marinara all over my white sneakers, but I didn't even look down. My mind was racing through the possibilities. Was I towed? Oh, I own the house. Was it repossessed? Impossible. I paid cash for the shell and every part inside it. Stolen. It had to be stolen. I scrambled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it into the pasta sauce and glass shards. My breath was coming in short, sharp gasps. I was already dialing 911 in my head, rehearsing what I'd say to the dispatcher. My baby is gone. Someone took her. But then a thought stopped me. A sinking, heavy feeling in my gut that felt worse than the panic. The spare key. The car didn't have a modern alarm system yet. I was saving up for that next month. But it had an old-school steering wheel lock and I had the key to that on my ring. The only other person who had access to the garage code and knew where the spare set of keys, including the one for the steering lock, was hidden, was my 22-year-old son Jason. I froze. Oh, he wouldn't. Jason had been asking for money a lot lately. Actually, asking is polite. He had been demanding it. He's got this idea that because he's young and finding himself, the world owes him a living, and by the world he specifically means me. But selling my car? That was a felony. That was insanity. That was a line even he wouldn't cross. Right? I decided to call him before the police. If he had borrowed it without asking, which would still make me furious, I needed to know before I reported it stolen and got my own son arrested at gunpoint. I dialed his number. Right. Come on, Jason, I hissed at the phone, pacing around the broken glass and tomato sauce. Pick up the phone. It went to voicemail. I called again immediately. This time he declined the call. A second later, a text popped up. The audacity of this text message still makes my blood boil when I think about it. It was so casual. So nonchalant. It was the kind of text you send when you tell someone you drank the last of the milk, not when you commit grand theft auto. It read, "Relax, Mom. I sold the car. We needed the cash. Talk later." I stared at the screen. I read it again. I sold the car. I felt like I had been punched in the throat. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just stood there reading those words over and over again, trying to make them make sense in the English language. He sold it. How? To? And the part that really sent me over the edge was the word, we. We needed the cash. I have worked double shifts as a nurse for 30 years. My mortgage is paid. My bills are paid. I did not need cash. He needed cash. Hey, really quickly before I tell you what I did next, I want you to pause for a second. I'm curious who is watching this and from where. Drop a comment down below right now with your city and what time it is for you. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Are you watching this at midnight in London or lunch break in New York? Let me know. Hey, back to the driveway. The rage that filled me wasn't the hot, fiery kind. It was the cold, calculating kind. The kind that makes you very, very calm. I looked at the text again. Talk later. Like he was brushing me off. Like he had done me a favor. I texted back. Bring the car back. No. 3 dots appeared. He was typing. Sold. Guy already drove it off. Don't be dramatic, it's just a car. We're family, family property is shared property. I'll give you a cut later. He was going to give me a cut of the money he made selling my car. I laughed. I actually stood there in my driveway standing in marinara sauce and laughed out loud. It was a dark, hysterical sound. He really thought that was how the world worked. He thought because he came out of my womb 2 decades ago he had the right to liquidate my assets whenever he felt a financial pinch. I didn't text him back. I didn't call him again. I knew exactly where this was going, and I knew that if I wanted to see my Mustang again, I had to stop being his mother and start being a citizen who had just been robbed. But first I had to clean up the pasta sauce. I walked into the house, grabbed a roll of paper towels and cleaned up the mess on the driveway. It took me about 10 minutes. I needed those 10 minutes. I needed to let the reality sink in. My son, the boy I had raised, the boy I had protected, had looked at my most prized possession and saw nothing but a quick payday for himself. He didn't care about the hours I spent sanding the bodywork. He didn't care about the pride I felt when I finally got the engine to turn over. He just saw a dollar sign. He thought he was clever. He thought he was entitled. He thought I would just roll over and take it because that's just Jason, and mothers always forgive. He was wrong. I went inside, washed my hands, and walked straight to the file cabinet in my home office. I pulled out a thick folder labeled Mustang. Inside was the title, the registration, the insurance policy, and a stack of receipts for every single part one had bought over the last 5 years. Every single document had one name on it: Evelyn Miller. Not Jason Miller. Not the Miller Family Trust. Just me. I grabbed my purse, checked to make sure I had my ID, and walked back out the front door. I didn't take my other car. I called an Uber. Destination: the police station. Sitting in the back of that Uber, watching the suburban houses blur past the window, I had nothing but time to think. The driver had the radio on low, playing some generic pop song, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. It's funny how clarity hits you when it's too late. You spend years making excuses for people, painting over their red flags with a coat of motherly love, until one day they strip the paint away and leave you staring at the ugly truth. You're probably wondering how a 22-year-old man builds up the audacity to sell his mother's car without asking. You don't just wake up one day with that level of entitlement. It's built brick by brick, and I have to admit I handed him the mortar. It started when his father left. Jason was 12. It was messy, loud, and heartbreaking. My ex-husband didn't just leave. He vanished to start a new family across the country, leaving Jason feeling abandoned and me feeling guilty. That guilt is a dangerous thing. I tried to be both parents. I tried to fill the void his father left with stuff. If Jason wanted the newest gaming console, I worked overtime to get it. If he got in trouble at school, I was down in the principal's office arguing his case, shielding him from consequences. I became the yes mom. I thought I was protecting him, but really I was crippling him. I created a monster who viewed my bank account as an extension of his allowance. Remember that text where he said, "We needed cash"? That has been his philosophy since high school. When he wanted to take a gap year in Europe to find himself, I funded it. He came back 6 months later with 0 epiphanies but a lot of expensive leather jackets. When he wanted to start a t-shirt business, I loaned him $5,000. I never saw a dime back, and the t-shirts are still sitting in boxes in my basement. He viewed my generosity not as a gift, but as a resource he was entitled to harvest. But the Mustang? That was different. That was the one thing in my life that had absolutely nothing to do with him. 5 years ago, after Jason went to college, on my dime of course, I felt empty. The house was quiet, my bank account was drained, and I realized I had no hobbies. I had no identity outside of being Jason's mom, or head nurse Miller. I needed something for me. That's when I found the car. It was sitting in a barn in the next county, covered in dust, rust eating away at the wheel wells, looking sad and forgotten. Most people saw a piece of junk. I saw potential. I saw something broken that could be fixed with enough patience and hard work. I bought it for $3,000. Jason laughed when I brought it home on a flatbed trailer. He stood in the driveway shaking his head and said, "Mom, why did you buy this heap? You could have given me that money for my rent deposit." That was the first time I told him to shut up about my money. Over the next 5 years, that car became my therapy. I came home from 12-hour shifts at the hospital, exhausted and smelling like antiseptic, and I would go straight to the garage. I learned how to sandblast metal. I learned how to install a wiring harness. I broke fingernails, I busted my knuckles until they bled, and I ruined countless pairs of jeans with grease stains. But every time I turned a wrench, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. When the engine finally roared to life for the first time last spring, I cried. I sat in the driver's seat, smelling the mix of old leather and new gasoline, and I felt powerful. That car represented my independence. It was the physical proof that I could build something beautiful on my own. Jason never understood that. To him, the Mustang was just an object. When he saw the finished product, he didn't say, "Wow, Mom, great job." He walked around it, tapped the hood, and said, "You know, these classics go for like 40 grand now. You should flip it." I told him explicitly, "I am never selling this car. I'm going to be a little old lady driving this thing to bingo." He had rolled his eyes. "Whatever. It's a waste of assets." That conversation played on a loop in my head as the Uber turned onto the main road leading to the police station. He knew. He knew exactly how much that car meant to me. He knew the hours I had poured into it. He knew it wasn't just a family property asset. But he didn't care. He saw a quick fix for whatever financial hole he had dug himself into this time. He looked at my passion project, my symbol of freedom, and he saw a price tag. The betrayal wasn't just about the theft. If he had stolen my jewelry, I would have been angry, sure. But stealing the Mustang felt like he was stealing my soul. He was cashing in my happiness to pay for his mistakes. I looked down at my phone. No new messages. He probably thought I was at home crying or maybe cooling off. He probably thought that by the time he came over for Sunday dinner, I'd be over it. He was banking on the yes mom. He was banking on the guilt-ridden divorcee who just wanted her son to be happy. But that woman was back at the house, cleaning up marinara sauce. The woman in the Uber was someone else entirely. I remembered the last time he asked for money. It was 2 months ago. He wanted to buy a high-end drone for videography. I had said no for the first time in years. He had thrown a tantrum, accusing me of being selfish, saying I had plenty of money for that stupid car. It clicked. He was jealous of the car. He was jealous that I was spending my resources on something that wasn't him. Selling it was a double win for him. He got the cash and he got rid of the competition. My hands clenched into fists on my lap. The sheer calculation of it made me feel sick. He didn't just sell a vehicle, he sold my boundaries. He sold my respect. The Uber driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Everything okay back there, ma'am? You look like you're about to kill someone." I met his eyes in the mirror. "Not kill," I said, my voice frighteningly calm. "Just educate. I'm about to teach a very expensive lesson." The driver nodded slowly and turned the music up a little. He didn't ask any more questions. I wasn't just going to the police to file a report. I was going to sever the cord. I was done being the safety net. If Jason wanted to act like a grown man who could make executive decisions about family property, then he could face the grown-up consequences of grand theft auto. As we pulled up to the police station, I took a deep breath. I wasn't sad anymore. I was ready. I had the registration in my bag, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to protect Jason from the mess he made. You know that feeling when you give someone a rope hoping they'll use it to climb out of a hole, but instead they just use it to tie you up? That was exactly how I felt standing in front of the police station. The building was imposing, a block of gray brick that looked as serious as I felt. But before I walked through those glass doors, I hesitated. That old instinct, that yes mom programming I told you about earlier, flickered back to life. I stood on the sidewalk, people brushing past me, clutching my purse like a shield. I had to give him one last chance. Not because he deserved it, but because I needed to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I had no other choice. I needed him to say it out loud so I could sleep at night later. I dialed his number again. My hand was shaking, but this time it wasn't from panic. It was from adrenaline. He picked up on the second ring. "Are you done freaking out yet?" His voice was so casual. He sounded like he was talking about a spilled coffee, not grand theft. I could hear the clinking of glass in the background, maybe bottles. He was out celebrating. The nausea hit me again, harder than when I saw the empty driveway. "Jason," I said, my voice dangerously steady. "I'm standing outside the police precinct. I need you to listen to me very carefully." He actually laughed. A short, dismissive snort. "Hey mom. Nice bluff. You're not at the police station. You're probably in the kitchen stress cleaning the stove. Just go relax." "I'm not bluffing," I said. "I want to know where my car is, and I want to know where the money is. If you bring the money to me right now and tell me where the buyer is, I won't walk through these doors." This is your only off-ramp, Jason. Take it. There was a pause on the line. For a second I thought maybe, just maybe, the reality was sinking in. But then he sighed, the long, exaggerated sigh of a teenager asked to take out the trash. Mom, look, he started, his tone switching to that condescending, mansplaining voice he used whenever he talked about cryptocurrency or his failed business ideas. You're being irrational. I got $15,000 cash for it. It was a quick sale. The guy wired it, I cashed it out, it's done. My knees almost buckled. 15,000? I whispered. Jason, that car was appraised at $45,000 last month. You sold it for scrap value. It's 15 grand we didn't have this morning, he shouted, losing his cool for the first time. Who cares what the book value is? Liquid cash is what matters. I have debts, Mom. I owe people. This fixes everything. It's family property. We help each other. I needed this, so I liquidated an asset. That's just business. It wasn't your asset. I screamed, drawing stares from a passing couple. I lowered my voice, trembling. It was mine. My name was on the title. And you didn't liquidate it. You stole it. It's the same thing, he insisted. Everything you have is basically mine anyway, right? I'm your only son. It all comes to me eventually. I just advanced my inheritance a little bit. Why are you being so selfish? You have a job. You have a house. I'm struggling out here and you're crying over an old Ford. That word. Selfish. I thought about the double shifts. I thought about the years I spent wearing shoes with holes in the soles so he could have Nikes. I thought about the marinara sauce on my sneakers and the emptiness of my garage. He didn't just feel entitled to my money, he felt entitled to my life. He truly believed that my existence served only one purpose, to facilitate his. You have debts. I asked quietly. What kind of debts, Jason? Just stuff, he mumbled, defensive now. Online betting. Some crypto margins that went south. It doesn't matter. The point is I fixed it. The money is already gone, Mom. I paid the guys I owed. So even if you want it back, you can't have it. It's done. So just go home, watch Netflix and let it go. You spent it all? I paid off my debts. I kept a couple grand for rent and expenses. Stop grilling me. I did what I had to do for the family. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't scared. He was annoyed that I was inconveniencing him with my anger. He had sold my joy for pennies on the dollar to cover his gambling losses, and he expected me to thank him for his financial wizardry. Jason, I said, and I felt a tear slide down my cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness. It was the final drop of guilt leaving my body. I'm not going home. I'm going inside. And I am going to report a theft. He laughed again, but this time it sounded a little forced. You won't. You love me too much. You'd never put your own son in jail. You're too soft, Mom. We both know it. I do love you, I said. That's why I have to do this. Because if I don't, you're going to be a leech for the rest of your life. Goodbye, Jason. Mom? Mom, don't be crazy. I hung up. I stood there for a moment staring at the black screen of my phone. He had called my bluff. He was so certain of my weakness that he bet his freedom on it. He thought the yes mom would never let him fall. But he forgot that before I was a mother and before I was a nurse, I was a person. And that person had just been pushed off a cliff. The conflict wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about the precedent. If I let this slide, if I let him sell a $45,000 car for 15 grand and keep the money because family, what was next? My house. My retirement fund? He would bleed me dry until there was nothing left, and then he'd blame me for running out of blood. I looked at the heavy glass doors of the precinct. I checked my bag again. Registration. Title. ID. I wasn't just walking in there to report a crime. I was walking in there to break the cycle. It felt like I was about to cut off my own arm, but I knew the infection was spreading, and if I didn't amputate the entitlement now, it would kill us both. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air, squared my shoulders and walked through the doors. The air conditioning inside hit me like a wall, smelling of stale coffee and authority. I walked straight up to the front desk where a uniformed officer was typing on a computer. He didn't look up immediately. Can I help you? Yes, I said, my voice ringing clear and steady in the quiet lobby. I'd like to report a grand theft auto. And I know exactly who did it. The inside of a police station is rarely like the movies. It's quieter, brighter, and involves a lot more paperwork. I sat at a metal desk opposite Officer Martinez, a man with kind eyes but a no-nonsense jawline. He had been typing silently for 5 minutes while I sat there, clutching my registration papers like they were the Holy Grail. "Okay, Ms. Miller," Martinez said, finally looking up. "Let me get this straight. The vehicle is a 1969 Ford Mustang Fastback restored, registered solely in your name. And you're saying your son, Jason Miller, took it without permission?" "He didn't just take it," I corrected, my voice tight. "He sold it. He texted me and admitted it." I slid my phone across the desk, the text chain open. Martinez picked it up, adjusting his glasses. I watched his eyebrows shoot up as he read Jason's messages. The casual arrogance, the family property nonsense, the admission of the sale price. "He sold a classic Mustang for $15,000? Martinez asked, looking genuinely offended on behalf of the car. "That's robbery in itself." "He has gambling debts," I said, feeling the shame heat up my face. "He sold it to a private buyer this afternoon." Martinez handed the phone back. "Ma'am, I need you to understand what happens next. If I file this report, it's out of your hands. This is grand theft auto. It's a felony. Once we locate the car and the buyer, your son is going to be facing serious charges. Are you sure you want to proceed?" Most parents, they hesitate here. I looked at Martinez. I thought about Jason's laugh on the phone. "You're too soft, Mom." "File it," I said. "I want my car back." Martinez nodded. He picked up his desk phone. "Do you have your son's number?" I gave it to him. Martinez put the phone on speaker. The dial tone purred through the small office. 1 ring. 2 rings. "Hello." Jason answered. He sounded winded, like he was walking fast. "Mr. Jason Miller?" Martinez asked, his voice deepening into that authoritative police tone that makes everyone nervous. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Officer Martinez with the City Police Department. I'm sitting here with your mother, Evelyn Miller. She's currently filing a report for a stolen vehicle. A 1969 Ford Mustang." Dead silence on the other end. It was the silence of a world crumbling. She's there." Jason's voice cracked. The swagger was gone instantly. "She is," Martinez confirmed. "Now, son, you have about 5 minutes to make this easier on yourself. We need the location of that vehicle and we need the contact information of the buyer. If you don't provide it right now, I'm putting out a warrant for your arrest and I'm putting out a bolo for the car as stolen property. If the buyer is driving it, they will be pulled over at gunpoint. Is that what you want?" Wait. Jason was panicking now. "You can't do that. It's a civil matter. She's my mom." "It's not a civil matter when the title holder reports it's stolen," Martinez said sharply. "Where is the car?" I sold it to a guy named Rick. He runs a used lot over on 4th Street. "Rick's rides. He paid cash." Martinez wrote it down. "And the money, Jason? Do you still have the $15,000? I spent most of it. I told you, Mom. I paid the bookies." He was screaming at the phone now, sounding like a frightened child. "Mom, tell him to stop. You can't let me go to jail." I leaned toward the speakerphone. My heart was pounding, but I forced my voice to be ice cold. "I gave you an off-ramp, Jason. You laughed at me. You called me soft." "Mom, please." Martinez cut him off. "Jason, stay where you are. We'll be in touch." He hung up. Martinez looked at me. "I know Rick. He's a fence. He buys stuff he knows is shady, which is why he paid $15,000 for a $45,000 car. He knows better." He stood up and grabbed his car keys. "Let's go get your car, Ms. Miller." The ride to Rick's rides was a blur. I rode in the front of the cruiser. When we pulled up to the lot, my heart leaped. There she was. My cherry red Mustang, parked right in the front row, but with a giant yellow sticker price on the windshield. $38,000. Rick was trying to flip it immediately for a $23,000 profit. We walked into the small, smoke-filled office. Rick, a greasy guy in a polo shirt, looked up and turned pale when he saw the uniform. "Rick," Martinez said pleasantly. "Nice Mustang out front." "Just got it in," Rick stammered. "Legitimate sale. I got the bill of sale right here." "From Jason Miller?" Martinez asked. "Yeah, nice kid. Said it was his." "Did you check the title, Rick?" Martinez asked, leaning on the counter. "Because if you did, you would have seen the name Evelyn Miller." And since Evelyn here is standing right next to me and says she didn't sign anything, you're currently in possession of stolen property. That's a felony for you too, receiving stolen goods. Rick looked at me, then at Martinez. He started sweating. Look, officer, the kid had the keys. He had the garage code. He said his mom was sick and they needed money for bills. I was trying to help out. You were trying to help yourself to a massive profit. I spoke up, stepping forward. That car is mine. I want it back. Now. Rick held up his hands in surrender. Okay. Take it. I don't want no trouble. I'll give you the keys right now. The deal is void. And the money? Martinez asked. You gave the kid 15 grand? Yeah. Cash. Rick yelled. Now I'm out 15 grand in the car? No way. I'm calling that kid. He owes me my money back. He sure does, Martinez smiled grimly. But the car leaves with Ms. Miller. You can take up the debt with Jason. Rick looked furious. He grabbed his phone and started dialing Jason furiously. Martinez handed me my keys. They felt heavy and cool in my hand. The metal was familiar. I walked out of that office, my legs shaking. I walked up to my Mustang. I ran my hand over the hood, feeling the smooth paint I had sanded myself. I unlocked the door and slid into the driver's seat. Smelled like home. I turned the key. The engine roared to life, that deep, throaty rumble that always made me smile. But as I sat there listening to the idle, I saw a beat-up Honda Civic pull into the lot, screeching to a halt. Jason jumped out. He must have raced over here. He saw me in the Mustang. He saw Officer Martinez standing by the cruiser. And he saw Rick storming out of the office, looking like he wanted to tear someone apart. Jason locked eyes with me through the windshield. He looked terrified. He ran toward my window. Mom, you got the car back. Great. So it's over, right? Tell the cop to leave. We can go home. I rolled down the window just an inch. It's not over, Jason, I said. What? You have the car. Rick wants his $15,000 back, I said, pointing to the angry dealer marching toward us. And you spent it. You owe him, Jason. And Rick doesn't look like the kind of guy who accepts IOUs. Mom, you have to help me. I don't have it. You have savings. Bail me out just this once. Please. He's gonna kill me. I looked at my son. I saw the panic, but I also saw the expectation. He still thought even now that I would write a check to make the bad man go away. I don't have savings for your mistakes anymore, I said. I have savings for my car parts. Good luck, Jason. Mom. I rolled up the window. I put the Mustang in reverse. Rick reached Jason at the same time Martinez stepped forward to intervene, but not before Rick grabbed Jason by the collar of his jacket. I saw Martinez separate them, pulling out his handcuffs to detain Jason, likely for the theft or the fraud involved in the sale. I didn't look back. I shifted into first gear, let out the clutch and peeled out of the lot. The tires chirped against the pavement. I drove away, the sound of my engine drowning out my son's screams for help. I didn't slow down until I hit the freeway. Once I got out of the city and the concrete faded into green highway signs, I finally pulled over to the shoulder. I put the Mustang in park, turned off the ignition and just sat there in the sudden silence. I wasn't celebrating, not exactly. I was shaking from the emotional whiplash, but the tears I shed weren't bitter. They felt cleansing. I had just traded a temporary pain for long-term peace. I had finally, permanently stopped being the yes mom. I found out the details of Jason's immediate fate the next day. Officer Martinez called me. He was professional but sympathetic. Jason spent the night in custody while the police sorted out the situation with Rick. Martinez explained that because I had my title and Rick was clearly operating a shady cash-only business, the car had to be returned to me immediately. Rick, however, didn't want to go through the headache of a civil court case over the $15,000 he'd handed Jason. Rick was just focused on getting his money back. So Jason was released, but only after he signed an official promissory note to repay Rick the full $15,000, plus a ridiculous interest rate within 60 days. Rick dropped the complaint of receiving stolen property against Jason, which kept the grand theft felony off my son's record for now. But Martinez made it clear that Rick was basically running a loan sharking operation on the side, and that debt was now very, very real. This was the twist. Jason didn't face jail time, at least not yet, but he faced something arguably worse. Absolute financial ruin at the hands of someone who wouldn't be swayed by a mother's pleading. He was carless, broke, and indebted to a man who probably owned a large collection of baseball bats. The call from Jason came later that morning. It wasn't the arrogant scoff from yesterday. It was a weeping, panicked mess. "Mom, you have to help me. I'm going to lose everything. That guy Rick, he's serious. He said he's coming to my apartment on Friday. You should have thought about that before you stole and wasted my retirement project, Jason," I said calmly. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee watching the morning news. I felt like I was watching his drama from a different planet. "But you have the money. You have your savings. You can pay Rick back and we can deal with the debt between us. It's family." "No," I told him. "I don't have the money for your poor choices. I have money for my life. Remember when you said family property was shared property? Well, the debt you accumulated gambling is shared property now too, Jason. You earned that $15,000 of debt when you liquidated my asset. You figure out how to liquidate your assets to pay it back." He screamed into the phone, accusing me of being heartless, of hating him, of wanting him to fail. He used every emotional weapon he had ever wielded against me, but they all just bounced off my shield of resolve. "I love you, Jason," I said, and I meant it. "But I won't watch you destroy yourself anymore. This is the lesson you demanded. You wanted to be an independent man who makes executive decisions. Now you have to face the consequences of being that man. You are on your own." I hung up. I didn't block his number, but I let every subsequent call go to voicemail. I didn't return them. The resolution, the closure I found, wasn't about revenge. It was about taking back control. I went straight to the bank and changed my accounts, my safe deposit boxes, and every single password. I changed the garage code and put in a new deadbolt on the office door where I kept my car title. I reinforced the boundaries he had so casually smashed. The Mustang? I took her to a specialty shop for a full inspection, just to make sure Rick hadn't put any sketchy parts in there. He was fine. I drove her every single day. Every time I heard that engine roar, it wasn't just the sound of a classic car. It was the sound of my personal freedom ringing true. It was the sound of a woman who finally put herself first. I haven't talked to Jason in 6 months. I did get a terse, formal letter from a low-cost lawyer asking for some kind of financial support, citing parental obligation. I sent back a one-sentence reply stating that my only obligation was to protect my personal property, which I had done. Jason had to move out of his apartment because he couldn't afford the rent after paying Rick off, partially through selling the rest of his expensive possessions, including his computer and all the drone equipment he'd bought with my previous loans. He's working 2 jobs now. Minimum wage jobs. He is learning for the first time in his life what a $30 utility bill feels like. He is learning what it means to be truly broke, not just broke in the sense of, "Mom won't buy me a new thing." He is learning the value of $45,000, piece by painful piece. I don't know if he'll ever truly forgive me for not rescuing him, but I know this. I saved him from becoming a total financial parasite. And more importantly, I saved myself. So that's the end of my revenge story. It was the most heartbreaking, terrifying, and ultimately freeing decision I have ever made. I got my car back and I got my life back. And Jason got the most expensive lesson of his life. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to draw a hard line with someone who thought they were entitled to your stuff, please drop a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on Evelyn's choice. Did I go too far, or was this the only way to save my son and myself? And if you enjoyed this wild ride, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more true tales of family drama, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Thanks for listening.